Your Excellency Olusegun Obasanjo, would you please come and share a few wise words with us? We know that you are leaving very soon, but I'm sure you have plenty of things to say to our country.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic, please permit me to stand on the protocol that you very well and ably established. Let me also express my appreciation and gratitude for the warm reception that I and my delegation have been accorded since we arrived here yesterday. Let me crave your indulgence that for the period that I will be engaged in sharing my view with you, I will be talking from experience from the receiving point of view and experience from the giving point of view. And if in my candid discourse you find some of my points a little bit unpalatable, I will say, forgive me. It is what I have found out of experience that I believe I should share with you. Mr. President and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me commend your effort in what you have presented to us this morning. A lot of work, a lot of preparation, a lot of thought had gone into what we have heard and what we have seen. Planning is very, very important and very essential. And that is what you have done. But if you go to the archive, you will see what I call the graveyard of plans and planning. Why have we had so many plans and so many plannings that have not achieved their purpose? The simple reason is inadequacy in execution. So we should not be slave to plans and planning. In fact, we should be really mindful of execution. And that is always the problem. Mr. President, you gave us the comparative advantage that this country has. And they are almost all God-given. But how do we take our how do we make the best use of these God-given special and strategic advantage that Burundi has? I can see that in the presentation, but we need to make sure that these advantages or special strategic advantages are not lost in any way at all. I have seen, and I will come to why I make that point. Our emphasis is on economic. And it is like when you see a building, a skyscraper, standing, lofty. It is nice, but how did it get there? The first important thing is foundation. What should be the foundation of our economic achievement, our economic development, our economic planning? I believe that is political. And that emphasis on political must also go hand in hand with the economic. Peace, first of all, security, stability, predictability. These are very, very essential. And peace will not come unless we make it to come. Security will not come unless we work for it. Stability will not come unless we work for stability. In other words, the foundation for us to get domestic and foreign investors coming in and doing what we want them to do is peace, security, stability, and predictability. I mention predictability because the investor wants to be able to plan, just as we do our own planning, wanting the investor to come. Want to be able to say, if I put in 100, in 2 years' time, I will get 150. Now, he needs to be able to be predictable, say that, and then bring his investment. And that is very important. The points that we want is also more or less what the investor wants. But we must see ourselves as partners, and that has been made in the presentation. Partners, partnership. And partnership, I will say, in the country, partnership between the private and public in the country, partnership between the private and public and civil society is very, very important. Partnership. And then, of course, when talking about conditions for stability, for security, for peace, we must not forget equity. country must be equitably managed, especially when we have to manage diversity. And there's no country without diversity. Diversity must be very well managed, equitably managed, where no matter what you are, you feel that you have a stake in the country. This is very, very important. So I put the foundation for getting the edifice. The edifice is the economic, but the foundation is mainly political management that will give that edifice the foundation that it needs. And I like what I see here, Mr. President. Part of what you have done is bringing people from all over the world. I think all 4 continents are represented here. I don't know if there's an Australian here or a New Zealander. Oh, Australian. Oh, 5 continents. Thank you very much. So the whole world is represented here, as you rightly put it. Yeah, that is what we need. We need every hand that we can get to help us. We tried it before. Immediately after our independence in Africa, we weren't sure whether we want to go socialist or we want to go capitalist. We were changing like weather call. But today we know, as it has been mentioned in the presentation, we cannot develop without private sector. And private sector means market, profit. If you don't like the word profit, use the word surplus. When you put your money, you develop, you generate surplus. And we cannot make progress in our economic development, in our social development, without really having the private sector doing the leading and the public sector, the government, providing the conducive environment, conducive condition to the private sector. Partnership. Now, let me address myself from the investor point of view. The investor has choice, and we should bear that in mind. The investor has choice. So we must be sure that in addition to our comparative advantage, we make the investor welcome. We make him feel that there's something in it for him. I will mention a few minor things which can easily drive investor away, particularly foreign investors. Arrival at the airport. The situation of the airport can entice or repel investors. I have seen that before. The way the inspector, for coming for the first time, the way he's treated either by the immigration or by the custom can put the investor off. and go elsewhere. I've heard the story and I have seen the experience. Why can't we have visa on arrival so that the investor can come in and want to do business? You can have visa on arrival for 5 days. If in 5 days you haven't finished your business, then go and come again for another 5 days. I don't believe that we lose anything by that. The ease of doing business. What are the permits? What are the licenses? Can the investor get them in one location? Exchange rate stability. It gives the investor predictability that I mentioned earlier on. The investor wants to make profit. There must be, and we inviting the investor, we want development, we want growth. So there must be win-win for both sides. And when the investor comes, as I always say, the investor is a king, but he's not a king to come and rule over us, because we, to whom the investor has come, we are the Lord. He is the king. We must treat him as a king or her, but he must treat us as the Lord, because we are the landlord. And he should be negotiation, dialogue, discussion. What does the investor want? And what can we give? How do we share the proceed? Because you want to bring your fund, we have what you need to add value. So what is in it for you and what is in it for us? And that is very, very important. And where we normally get it wrong, particularly as investors, is when we want to have the lion's share of the cake. The lion's share of the cake should go to the Lord, the landlord, and the not too small piece should go to the king, the investor. And that, if we are able to do that, then there should be amicability, friendship, partnership, sharing, and caring together. Of course, I said that in the presentation, the domestic investor is very important. We must treat them as we treat the foreign investor. Yes, we can lay red carpet for foreign investor when they arrive, but we must also have a good mat for the domestic investor. Domestic investor will not need a carpet, but he will need good mat on which to lie down with us. The point that I alluded to when I talk about you having the whole world here is no investor should drive another investor away, either on ideological ground or on political ground. No, we want all hands. If you are a devil, provided you don't come with your devilish ideas, we want you. If you are saint, provided you will bring your saintly thing here, we want you. So we are open to all and sundry. irrespective of their ideology. What is important is their money, their fund, has no ideological attachment, and we need it. And that is very important. So the idea of saying, well, look, one particular investor from one particular part of the world or from one particular country, what is he doing here? We shouldn't be part of that. We want all investors, and we should be prepared to take all investors. Now let me mention part of the point that I need to emphasize, which have come out on the presentation. There are certain things that we must not allow to be in the way of our development plan. Competence. We must have competence. And you have them. You have them. People who are competent to be able to produce and promote and deliver. Technically, men and women, competence, and you have talked about that. Fighting corruption. Corruption must not be allowed to be in the way of our development. And corruption is a hydra-headed phenomenon. As you are trying to fight it in one way, it's trying to rear its ugly head in another way. And best fight for corruption is integrity and honesty and transparency at the highest level of development, of governance. And that is very, very important. And the international community knows us more than we know ourselves. We cannot bury our heads in the sand and say, oh, yes, we are holy when we are not. They know we are not. They know what we are. So it is important that we are like Caesar's wife in every way above board in fighting corruption. I will want to emphasize 3 points. The first is security of individual, personal security. It is very, very important. The second is security, food and nutrition security. Very, very important. You cannot outsource your national and personal security. It must be something that is in your hand. And of course, if you cannot feed yourself, whoever feeds you can enslave you. So we must be able to feed ourselves. For me, if you want to eat caviar, that's not my responsibility. But the basic carbohydrate, protein, and good drinkable water, these are basic things that we must be able to provide. Security. The third one for me is education, which is part of human capital development. It is these 3 must not be allowed to. There should be no lacking in attention to these 3. Territorial and personal security, food and nutrition security, and education, which I see as human capital development. Africa needs development. Africa needs funds for development. But what I know, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, is that the money to develop Africa is out there. It is a question of us having the right policy to incentivize that money, to ensure that we have conducive environment for that money to come in, and for that money to stay in, and for that money to do what it needs to do for our development. The money that is put in treasury bills and things could come for development in Africa and earn greater return on investment, that there need for assurance that that money will be safe and secure. And anytime there is need to move part the proceed out, then there's nothing to stop the moving the proceed out. Opportunity abound in Africa for investors. And the point is this, I will say to our foreign investors, we want you, because by investing in Africa, you are helping us to actually build an Africa that is free from conflict, that is free from violence, that is free from lack of security. The major source of concern for security in Africa today is the restiveness of our youth, who are unemployed. Some of them almost unemployable because they have no education or professional qualification for them to be employed. And they are going, those of them that can go out of the continent, they go out. Those that cannot go out take to criminality. Some take to really becoming great source of insecurity. So if we are able to develop and provide employment for our youth, then we will be able to reduce the level of insecurity, the level of conflict, the level of violence, and of course, it will be good for all of us. This is where I believe we should see the investment in Africa as contributing to making the world a better place for all of us. And let me end on this note. Mr. President, one of the things that we have been able to do in Africa in recent times, for me, that is very good, is the decision of you, our incumbent leaders, to establish Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. It is very, very good. And it has not moved as fast as it should move. I will urge you, our incumbent leaders, to make that agreement do what it is set out to do as quickly as possible. Then we will be talking of one market, not 54 markets. We will be talking of one custom declaration of form, not 54 custom declaration of forms. It will hasten our development. It will hasten our integration. We need economic integration. And the earlier we can have an African passport, an African visa, so that anybody coming to Africa, he doesn't have to get 30 visas. It will be helpful for investment in Africa. And I hope, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, that I will be able to benefit from that before I go. Thank you.